With the YNW Melly trial resuming on Monday, online lawyers spoke out today about YNW Melly's plans in the trial. Here's what you need to know. Lawyers mentioned this case is now set up perfectly for some sort of plea deal, as the feds not being able to locate the firearm that was used in the crime is a major win. When it was reported, YNW Melly's reaction when a firearm expert tells the judge he didn't bring the item because he has no idea what item was used for the crime.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what firearm was used.
Okay. Do you have a...
However, the other major win for Melly comes today as well, when a brand new update had been ordered inside of the courtroom, after it was reported stating, YNW Melly's judge sides with the rapper's defense, denies jury's view of the car.
Her witness testified to the specs, the measurements in the car. We actually have photographs that have been moved into evidence that have measuring sticks that clearly show you the distance in the car. We don't even know where the were truly sitting because there are no seen photos that actually show them being in the car at the hospital.
I respectfully motion tonight. I don't think it's necessary to have a jury view. I don't think it's essential result having photographs of the vehicle in question. I don't think it's going to assist the jury to any great degree analyzing the evidence. So respectfully motion tonight.
This would leave YNW Melly now in a great spot for the rest of the trial, as we would see multiple experts get called by the prosecution to the stand, with all of them providing little to no evidence against Melly, as well in even some cases making YNW Melly look better to the jury, where we would even see undercover detective Danny Polo share this in the courtroom while wearing a ski mask.
They would quickly get checked. That happened to those two kids. I don't know how old they are. Those two guys that were claiming money, the Island Boys, with the fun haircut.
Okay.
Yeah, they were claiming to be members of, which is a set of, and they quickly got checked by almost every that can find them on social media. They got framed, and they then had to recant and apologize.
Did you find any evidence whatsoever of any recanting or apologizing by Mr. Demmons in the records that you reviewed?
There's no recanting, there's no apologizing, there's no one calling out Mr. Demmons for being a fake.
Then in the second day of him being on the stand, the judge would then make him remove the mask that he has been wearing, where it seemed as if YNW Melly recognized exactly who this man was.
Yes, sir. You can take off your mask.
Yes, sir.
Over. State's objection, Your Honor, based on the previous issues.
Jury entering.
Overall, Danny Polo being on the stand made YNW Melly look innocent, as he actually revealed Melly is not technically affiliated with a street team. As Danny would reveal, YNW Melly stopped responding to text messages from team leaders that were all trying to recruit him.
Now, Melly's defense is now entering into cross-examination of Danny Polo. And what Danny is admitting on the stand, now Danny Polo had admitted that YNW Melly was actually being recruited by two different sets. And based off of the text message thread between the different individuals trying to recruit Melly, Melly was not replying. Melly stated weeks later that he was so busy doing radio interviews and shows that he just didn't have time to reply. And if you go back and read the text messages, those recruiters were basically begging Melly to reply back. And he didn't. Because Melly was an up-and-coming rapper who had a ton of money and ambition, and any of these different groups would love to have him under their roster. Because Melly wasn't interested in being a he was being labeled as somebody who was false flagging. It's possible that it was Shine that did the drive, all because Melly didn't want to be a part of their group.
As in the end, this could disprove the prosecution's theory of YNW Melly doing this crime to go higher up in the ranks in a street team. However, we would even see another witness fall through for the prosecution as well, when they called Melly's ex-girlfriend's mother to the stand to speak on what YNW Melly said on the night it happened. She totally forgot exactly what YNW Melly said on that night.
I do remember that they kind of me and my daughter and take her to jail for accessory. I do remember that.
Yes. And in terms of the statements that you made about what happened,
Yeah.
you don't have any recollection of
No.
that. Did you read this statement multiple times?
I looked at it and I just didn't recall it, and I don't know.
And so you indicated you hoped you were truthful with law enforcement.
Yes, I did.
I have to ask you to be more definitive. Were you truthful?
I don't remember what I said to them back then, so if I was to tell you something now, I could be lying. I don't want to lie on the stand because you're going to take me to jail. So I'm saying what you want me to say.
I do not want you to say anything. I want you to tell the truth.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
Mysteriously forgetting every single piece of evidence that she ever knew in this case, even what YNW Melly said to her own daughter on the night of the crime. Shortly after this, an FBI agent would then take the stand. This FBI agent specializing in cell phone data research, where we would see YNW Melly's lawyer questions an FBI agent that analyzed Melly's phone at the time of the crime.
Based on the information, you can't really tell the court precisely which locations these phones are following, can you?
One of the limitations of cellular analysis is that you can only say a general area where the device would be at a given time.
All right. So even with the general analysis, all of the steps that we've gone through for about 4 or 5 hours, at the end of the day, you can never give an exact location.
True.
And could you tell if somebody was walking around a car with the phone? Would you be able to tell that?
No.
So it'd be your testimony that this phone, 9807, could be from here to here, correct?
Yes.
And what was the distance?
Which this prosecution witness made it very clear to the courtroom that he cannot pinpoint the exact location of YNW Melly's cell phone, once again leaving reasonable doubt that the phone might not have even been inside of the car. However, when the DNA specialist then took the stand, it got even more interesting for Melly, as his job was to go over DNA research on items that were found inside of the car as well as at the crime scene, where it would read, DNA analyst confirms YNW Melly's DNA was not found on multiple items that were recovered at the crime scene.
So going to item number 22, the swab from the Gucci sandals. Were you able to compare the profile from Mr. Demons as opposed to the profile developed from those sandals?
I did, and he was excluded.
The stain on the front of the t-shirt, item number 23. Were you able to compare Mr. Demons' profile to that?
I did a comparison, and he was again excluded.
What about item number 24, the cutting on the stain of the rear of the t-shirt?
After comparisons were done, he was excluded.
Okay, then on item number 25, the swab of stain from the Air Jordans.
Again, an exclusion.
Going on to item number 26, the swab from the yellow jacket.
An exclusion as well.
And in terms of the item number 27 and 28, the swabs at the Gatorade bottles. What were the results on that?
Those were both exclusions.
He would also later reveal that the only spot that had YNW Melly's DNA was on the car door handle, which is obvious as we all watched him get into the car on the surveillance footage at the recording studio.
Excuse me, you're able to see? Yes? All right.
However, it wasn't until the prosecution revealed this next piece of evidence that is in so much a favor of YNW Melly, as on the first day of trial, the prosecution announced that YNW Melly was picked up by rapper Fredo Bang, and this would change everything about the case.
And Chris Thomas are. So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Devins is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Givens then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Devins has moved a couple of meters. What you're going to find out as well, though, is these digital leashes, they have more than just phone calls.
With the information of Fredo picking up YNW Melly now being revealed to the jury, this is a golden ticket for YNW Melly to be found innocent, as if his lawyers can prove Melly was picked up by Fredo Bang before the crime, this would change the entire trial, especially due to the prosecution revealing that YNW Melly was picked up at some point throughout the night, as this is even YNW Melly's reaction alongside his lawyers when they figured out a golden ticket just fell into their lap.
Thank you. Let the record reflect the jury step down. Counsel remain. Call with the defendant and our witness. Yes, counsel, I'm sorry. I just figured it was easier if we just let the jury go.
Understood.
Makes sense. Your Honor, may we have this discussion just in case there needs to be some supplementation testimony outside the presence of him?
Sure.
While things were looking great for Melly, in the blink of an eye, everything would then turn bad. So bad, it could even lead to him snitching on himself to take a lesser sentence, as we had received brand new information from a lawsuit against YNW Melly that seeks millions in damages, but also in the end reveals where the firearm went. It all starts in the report of the Stranger Things jacket YNW Melly is wearing in this video just hours after the crime is the same one that Juvie had on when they left the studio early on that morning. YNW Bortlen is wearing the one Sack Chaser had on too.
You see him? Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He's still out here being very positive. Turned still. Hey! The dog still turned, regardless of what happened. You already know.
Not only were they randomly copying the clothing that Juvie and Sack Chaser had on just hours ago, but YNW Melly is also dancing, looking like he is in great spirits and nothing is even wrong. This is precisely how YNW Juvie's father described Melly's behavior when he was talking to him just a day after Juvie's passing, leading him to believing that YNW Melly is the guilty one.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have to take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind, something's not right.
While YNW Juvie's father was speaking out online about his son, we would even see Juvie's mother appear inside of the courtroom, confirming where her son, as well as YNW Melly, were sitting in the vehicle on that night.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the kids in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Positive 2/19/15
Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
Here's where it gets interesting. Juvie's mom has been up to a lot more outside of the trial. She just started a lawsuit against YNW Melly seeking millions worth of damages. The lawsuit lists not only YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen, but even his manager 100K Track, while also including YNW Melly's mother's name and as well as the men that were inside of the red vehicle on that night. The lawsuit argues that YNW Melly, his music manager, and his mother benefited from the passing of Juvie by using the hashtag #FreeMelly to promote his music. It then even states, with continued financial gain and notoriety and prospects of more, tensions began to develop between members of the YNW group, where they even highlighted the video of YNW Melly's mother talking to YNW Sack Chaser.
Show me text messages from Sack Chaser, all her friends, and all these people, like he's about this life. But I'm saying, like, who you ever out at? What you ever did? You couldn't even take charge. If you don't sit your down and don't ever come for me, because my credentials is real. It ain't even a joke. So don't ever try to come for me, because I don't even play them type of games. Like, what you got that I ain't got? Oh, you your little. I got big. At the end of the day, Melly is my child.
It then even goes on to mention what they believe happened to Juvie, stating, and I quote, YNW Melly was seated in the left rear seat of the vehicle where he affected Christopher Thomas, aka YNW Juvie, following the incident during the critical period where it was still possible to save Juvie and Sack Chaser. Defendants YNW Melly and Bortlen instead changed their clothing and then staged the drive-by. In doing so, they destroyed evidence of their crime and even manufactured evidence to support the staged drive-by by using a firearm multiple times inside and around the Jeep. It continues further reading, YNW Melly's manager, Jameson Francis, and his mother, Jamie King, were involved in the cover-up to varying degrees, including hiding evidence. Then the most incriminating evidence for Melly's manager would be when it reads, defendant 100K Track assisted YNW Melly and Bortlen with the collection and disposal of the firearm that was used in this crime. And even the lawsuit lines up nearly perfectly with what Sergeant Williams said on the stand, almost as if the prosecution should have been replaced by YNW Juvie's mother. However, Sergeant Williams is responsible for the reconstruction of the crime scene, and he had this to say when he was questioned.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. The at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned so I'm going to zoom in on site F.
He would then even follow it up with another report that goes on to read, YNW Melly is accused to be the one using the firearm in this situation. Williams, who said there was an item used 3 times inside of the Jeep, including 17 times outside of the Jeep.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that Christopher Thomas, where did that came from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been two inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
As this is where YNW Melly would begin looking very concerned inside of the courtroom. He was no longer joking and laughing around with his lawyers. William seemed extremely confident in his findings. This is when even the rap lawyer would speak on how YNW Melly's defense team could try to get out of this.
You see what the experts are doing for the prosecution, and what's interesting to me is what the defense is doing when they cross-examine these experts, which is they're essentially highlighting the prosecution's opinion. Rather than try to pick apart holes and say, what about this, what about that? They're saying, oh, this is what you're saying, right? That's a fact? Okay, and they're knocking them down, and they're pinning them down, and they're saying, okay, I'm gonna hold you to this. This is your opinion. You think you know for a fact that came after this person was bet. You think you know for a fact that these came from not a drive-by because of the trajectory, and I know bet. And so what you're going to see, what I assume, because what is the defense doing? Well, I assume they have experts who they believe are a lot more credible, who have testified a lot more times in cases, who have a lot more research and credibility based on their experience and history in the field. And those experts are going to come on and take the stand, and those experts are going to poke the holes and say, you can't possibly know when this in relation to that. You can't possibly know how. We'll see. But that's what seems like it's setting up for the defense's experts to come in.
However, when it was time for YNW Melly's lawyers to ask Sergeant Williams questions, they practically did a very clever way of snitching on YNW Bortlen once again.
And you are aware that the person that claimed it was a drug is Cortland Henry.
I believe so. I don't know who said that it was a drive. I was just asked to say if it was a drive-by.
Okay. And you were aware that when Cortland Henry made this statement that this gentleman was nowhere around, right?
I wasn't part of the initial investigation, okay. So I don't know if that was included in their Miramar's investigation with that.
Okay. But what you are saying is whoever claimed was lying.
Was incorrect.